Hello and welcome to the Property Roundup here on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view of activity on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging. This show is sponsored by daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Portlaoise-based estate agent Clement Herron of Clement Herron Real Estate. Clement, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Carol. Delighted to share.
Well, look, I'm. First of all, we've a list of things that we want to get through. Like all problems, we think we can solve them in a day. But let's start by talking about the property market in Portlaoise. We've had the daft.ie and myhome.ie reports, as well as some of the estate agents' commentary, have come out in the last month. What are you experiencing, or what are your buyers and sellers experiencing in the residential market in and around Portlaoise?
In Portlaoise at the moment, it's a seller's market, and there's a scarcity of second-hand properties on the market, and new houses are quite expensive. They're expensive to build, so they're fitting into some criteria. We were able to sell. We've 3 new developments on at the moment, and we are running some of them through the affordable home scheme in conjunction with Laois County Council. Some of them are private, and most of them will get the help to buy scheme, or there's another scheme there for the first home scheme that buyers are able to engage in and get that money for them. So they're selling as quick as the builders can build them, we can sell them.
Fantastic.
And they're going well. Typically, 3-bedroom and a terrace is 365,370, somewhere up around there. 1,300 square feet, A-rated, well built. There's a mix of ICF and timber frame, super warm homes. They're all A-rated, and the certification makes them all really, really good. You don't really have to check them with engineers afterwards because the certification is it's easy. They're an easy sell.
Very good. And tell me, who's buying right now?
We've a lot of non-nationals buying at the moment. A lot of people in the medical trade. Portlaoise, we're lucky enough to be very, very central. You're an hour and a half from anywhere. So people that will commute even to Limerick, Dublin, and they can be anywhere in an hour and a half from here. So, and a lot of Irish professionals as well. Irish, but you would have we'll say not. I'm not saying they're not Irish, but of original Irish, you would have less. Probably 30-40% of our buyers are coming from non-nationals, or just arrived here in the last 6 or 7 years.
Okay, and what proportion would be, say, mortgage buyers versus cash buyers?
All the new homes are bar on the last scheme I did. I say maybe it was 2 out of 60 were cash buyers. The rest were cash. The rest were mortgage.
Excellent. And in terms of the mortgage buyers, are they mainly, I mean, what we saw through the Irish Payments Federation data was that the majority of mortgage buyers in 2023, by a long shot, were first-time buyers. Is that a trend?
Yeah, they're first-time buyers, 2 professionals, generally both in good jobs. I see even on the Times this morning saying that the number of people on over 100,000 now has grown by 50% this year, and it's driving up property prices. I don't really agree with that. I think supply and demand commands prices, but maybe it's making it easier for prices to go up. It's only a sideshow, really. I wouldn't consider it, as reported this morning, I wouldn't consider that to be a reason the prices go up. Prices are going up because builders need a margin, or else they're going to stay in bed, and they're not out to do anybody. They just want to build and have a margin between 10 and 15% is what they work on. And if they're not getting it, they might as well stay at home.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we are aware of some who are not getting it, and they're tied into delivery for a whole host of reasons. But they're definitely not making a huge amount of money out of it, and they're probably not making their 15%. But just in terms of, it's amazing that you have 3 new homes developments on the go there, because actually when we like to speak to estate agencies right across the regions, and we can see that there's such a shortage of new homes delivery. So it's amazing that you've got the 3 of them there. But in terms of the second-hand market, I mean, what's the marketplace in Portlaoise like?
They're very scarce at the moment, and this is probably the lowest level of second-hand homes I have ever had to offer the market. And I'm doing this almost 20 years, 18 years, I think I'm at this, and I'm going, oh, this really is the lowest I've seen it. ever. You know, the number of second hands coming in, and second hand comes in. If it's priced right, it'll sell. And amazingly, if it's priced wrong, it'll sit there because the buyers are clever. They're switched on just because there's a scarcity. They just don't, they're price sensitive. If it's priced right and the product is right, they'll buy it. And if it's not, they'll step back. It's a switched on marketplace. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing. They understand their square footage. They understand their product. They understand their areas. They understand what they're doing. They're more educated. They're more switched on than ever before. You know, they're not doing this, oh, I'm just running and buying. There's no craziness.
Yeah, you know, I'm actually really delighted that you brought that up because it is something we touched on towards the latter part of last year, but it's something that's quite different to at other points in history where we saw that there was a shortage and maybe, you know, about 3 or 4 years ago when we started to see those reports of people queuing in the cars overnight when a new scheme was being launched, I really thought we were going to go back into that silly season of people just not understanding value and buying to the max of their mortgageable capacity, which is not good for anybody. But I think you've absolutely nailed it there. The buyers are so savvy. They've been watching the market. I think they understand value. So it's not even around that, you know, they have their mortgage and they're ready. They've been watching the market. They have the data. They understand what represents value. But what's interesting is that the secondhand homes, you would imagine that in an area like Portlaoise, when you are seeing a greater supply of new properties coming to the market, that actually, unlike in other parts of the country that isn't seeing that, you know, maybe those who are in existing homeowners who might be looking to trade up or down would be taking advantage of the new homes market, but that doesn't seem to be happening. What do you think is causing the shortage of secondhand properties coming to the market?
Well, the new homes market is an advantage because generally speaking, the first time buyer is going to get their 30,000 on it anyway. So they're looking at that. And I'd be wrong to say it was built in because they're allowed to, it's given the builder a bit of a margin. The second-hand homes and my argument and my thinking why the second-hand homes are going to remain strong and they're going to remain buoyant and they're going to increase year on year is because we'll say, for example, I was selling to a local authority lately a house and I was selling it for 230,000. And he said, you're a bit too dear on that. We'll buy it at 210. I said, I'm not selling it at that. It won't, not happening. And I said, tell me, do you think you could build it for it? And he said, that's irrelevant. I said, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Why would you go out and build new homes? You're paying 310,000 for new homes. Why are you refusing to buy one of the second hand for 50,000 less? Do you know, so, but
is
also,
that because they're factoring in maybe even the difference in terms of building performance? Would it take them more than 50,000 to get this to a standard?
No, it wouldn't take them that, and they're not that much undervalued. It's that the garden, the school teacher, have got they've saved up a bit of a deposit. They're now entitled to get some of their hard-earned tax back in proper order in the form of their first-time buyer, not the first-time buyers, their Help to Buy scheme. They're going to get their 25 or 30,000 back. They won't get that if they go to a second hand, so they're only going to go to a new house. The builder's only going to sell them a new house if he's making a margin. So it's win-win, but the second-hand house is not that far behind.
Yeah.
It's by the amount of money that they're getting, a lower amount of money, it's not that far behind. The second-hand house is still a good buy. And if, you know, I don't see them crashing is what I would say. That's my crystal ball. It's malfunctioned before.
Clement, do you know, despite being in this industry for nearly quarter of a century, as was pointed out to me recently, quarter of a century is an awful long time, but actually, despite that time, at heart, I'm still a farmer's daughter. So I always look at the second-hand homes and think they're usually in a better location, better positioned, on larger sites, you know, and I always see the potential there and think, why do buyers not see those? But I suppose what I'm curious about is because you do have new homes in the Portlaoise market, why are those homeowners who do actually want to trade up and down and it, like, for the reason people give for not being able to do that is because they want to stay in their community, but there's no new homes, smaller homes to trade down into. But obviously in Portlaoise, that's not the case. So why are sellers? So when you're meeting sellers and they're asking you probably to price their home, but then they're not actually listing it, why are sellers not bringing their properties to the market now?
Sometimes because they can't find something to buy is exactly they go out and they try and like I had a question. I live in Clane and Kildare. A guy rang me today and he said, "I'm selling this apartment because I want to buy a house." He says, "What do I do first?" And I said, "You do them both the same day. You execute both contracts the same day. That's what you do if you don't want to be exposed because the market goes up or the market goes down, and I don't know which is going to happen. Off you go and buy. I'll go off I go and I'll sell for you. I'll be crystal clear to anybody that's buying yours that you're buying subject, you're selling subject to being able to buy something and get your contracts in and do it all in one go because it's always relative. Property's relative. Whereas if you sell your apartment and you want to sit on your 100,000, the property starts spiking and going up, your 100,000 is losing value rapidly because you don't have the same purchase power. But if you want to keep it relative, do it simultaneously.
Yeah, I actually had, we were chatting to Pat David, the CEO of IPAV, just in recent weeks, and we were just talking about the impact of conveyancing delays on transactions. And that is particularly severe when you're talking about a chain where people need to sell and buy in the same day. And I feel like it's something in Ireland, as an industry, we don't do well. We haven't really cracked that nut.
Okay, and here's the reason we haven't cracked that nut is because we only realized that we have that problem when this guy, I spoke to him for the first time today, and I said, no, this is how you need to tee this up, buddy. This is how you need to time this. Whereas if he'd to come and say, right, I'm selling the apartment, which is what he wants to do, I always want to know when he's selling an apartment, what's your motivation? So I want to buy. Okay, well let's work with this now and see why you want to do that and how we're going to do that and how we're going to knit it all together. Because if you go to all the rounds and you sell his apartment and your deposit all done, he's ready to sign his contract. And he said, I haven't found anything. Well, you haven't found anything. Well, when you tell me, because we should have. It's called their motivation when you're listing the house. What's your motivation? Why do you want to sell this? If do you want to downsize? Have you found something to downsize? Are you an landlord? You're exiting the market. Your home has become too small. You need a bigger one. There's going to be a reason why you're selling, and the reason why they're selling could be another opportunity to knit it together. But it's also an opportunity for what I call the double bubble. Maybe they buy and they sell, and you might get both. Well and good. But it's also an opportunity, and it's a mechanism to ensure that you don't have fall throughs.
Yeah.
When you operate that way and you get the motivation and you tee it up right the first day, you're 10 times less likely to have a fall through. But if you just plow straight in and woohoo and list the property on the market and get your BER and get all your viewings and on you go and you've all your offers and said, yeah, we've got your place sale agreed. And this guy's looking at you and go,
yeah,
panic stations. And that's not the conveyancer's fault. That's, would say, it's what I would call teeing it up right day one.
Yeah.
What exactly is the motivation here? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get it? What's the end goal? And if you know the end goal, you have a better idea and you have more of a chance of concluding the transaction.
Look, you're absolutely right. And I think for people listening in today, unfortunately, that'll be too familiar for some of them. In fact, just before Christmas, we spoke to somebody who had just moved into their new home, but it had taken them maybe a year of a process because they had one or two false starts, and their early fall throughs were and actually they were in the Naas area, because there was such a shortage of secondhand homes on the market that the homes they were trying to buy, the people who were selling them, they weren't confident of being able to follow through. But unfortunately, this particular buyer was also a homeowner. So not only was in the position of being a buyer trying to preserve the mortgage over an extended period of time while looking, they were also trying to manage the sale of their own home at the same time. So yeah, it's a very tricky scenario.
Doable though, it is doable. And once you line it up the first day and explain all the obstacles, these are the things that can go right and go wrong, and that we need to be doing this. And as an agent, you should know how long it's going to take to get this sale agreed. Now, tell me, where are your title documents? Everything's grand. Everything's grand is not an answer. Has your solicitor have you signed an authority to take up deeds? I don't know. And you see, this is fine for us to say, have you actually signed an authority? Are the deeds taken up? And then they will go, "No, but you need to go and do all these things before we all start wasting our
Well,
time here. You need to,
Clement, hopefully 2023 is the last year that that's really a problem, because at some point throughout 2024, we are expecting the seller's legal pack to come into force while
oh,
it's at build
not
stage
before.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
absolutely. Look, absolutely. But on the other side of it, the industry could be proactive here and adopt it as if it were law. They could actually proceed on the basis that look, this is going to be law. So actually, this is the best practice that we're operating to, and insist that everything that would ensure compliance with the legislation around the seller's legal pack is actually adhered to now in advance of it becoming law. And that would help. If everybody in the industry did that, that would help everybody, including most importantly the consumers, the people buying and selling.
Well,
Um,
we do partner with I Am Sold. If we're auctioning a property or bringing a property to auction, and looking at the process, would say that they employ to make sure the legal pack is all set and ready and done up in front. There's nothing wrong with doing that for private treaty. That when you have it agreed, you can say to this guy, okay, get in there now and sign a contract there,
yeah.
please and thanks. Or you can push it along a lot further, and you will. I sometimes listen to agents and they say, "Oh, sale fell through," and I'm going, "Why?" And I don't get fall throughs, are very, very few. And the
Yeah.
only time you get a fall through is where people lose the run of themselves. You say, calm down, and you won't get fall throughs if you tee them up right, and
Yeah.
everybody understands what's required from them.
Well, look, I think the auction model is particularly interesting. And look, here within iProperty Radio, we're huge fans of the I Am Sold team. And it was really interesting. And the last time we had them on the show, Patrick Folan shared with us that actually almost half of their auction properties end up selling outside of the auction process. But they've still gone through this due diligence in advance. They have their seller's legal pack essentially. So
They have their binding bid, and
yeah,
they're locked in.
absolutely. Yeah. So look, it's a model that we very much want to adopt. So I suppose, look, what we've spoken about so far has really been around the home buyers who may be looking to enter or exit the market. But in terms of landlords, what has your experience been? Because Portlaoise is a funny marketplace, and I know this from years of dipping in and out of it myself, that actually, yes, you're in the centre of Ireland, you've got an urban centre, but your catchment area is a hugely rural one, yet one that has been infinitely popular amongst commuters, and yet affordable enough for investors. So I post crash, I remember Portlaoise became a really key destination for buy-to-let investors, particularly those who were looking to buy without a mortgage. So I mean, what's the rental market like in Portlaoise at the moment? And I mean, are investors, buy-to-let investors? I ask every estate agent that I interview, are you seeing any new buy-to-let investors coming into the market?
No,
Are you seeing
there
many leaving?
absolutely. That's what a mountain of our second-hand sales in the last few years are buy to let, and landlords leaving the market. This morning, for example, in Kilbegan, we have 77 residential units there. We issued notice on 35 of them this morning to quit. We're selling. Landlords out. Um, it's run its course. They're there for 12 years. They've done their best. There's a golden opportunity. There's no engagement from the local authorities to buy it. So we just have to say very, very hard thing to do, on a Monday morning is hand out 35 notices to quit, knock on the door. You've got to leave. You've got to find alternative accommodation. These landlords are at their wits' end. Well, they're not at their wits' end. They've made an investment 12 years ago. It's run its course, we'll say a 10-year plan. Now it's time for them to exit. And the I shouldn't really say the local authorities seem to think that they're beholden to them to accommodate their tenants. And we're saying, well, if you want to just buy it from us, we're here to sell. We're
Yeah.
here to do a deal. We have a social conscience. We want these people to be in. That's the last thing we want to do is give tenants notice. But if we're in that position, we have to take an instruction. And unfortunately, it's a commercial decision. And an investment runs its course. As you know, Carl, we're both in the industry a long time. That you make a decision on a property. A lot of quick bucks were made back in the day, but you'll find the shrewder guys or the guys that hang in there made a plan. This guy made a 10-year plan. He ran it for 12 years. Now it's time to exit. That's it. It's not, it wasn't a quick buck. It was have a plan, pension program, run for 12 years. I have a guy today saying to me, he wants to not give me 800,000. He wants to invest 8 or 900,000. I'm going to go and buy the units, and then I'll go and rent them back from him. I'll give him a very good yield. I'll put together a deal that'll stack up in a pension. But I don't want anybody coming to me in 10 years' time when I go to dispose of those assets again. Oh, no, you have to hang on to them. They're all occupied. No.
But the only thing is, we do know that there have been huge changes in terms of landlord and tenancy law. In fact, some changes are still being touted. So say, for example, the tenant right to purchase. I mean, what kind of feedback are you getting from your landlord clients about maybe some of the current government and the policies that have been introduced?
Some of the policies, the policies in the RTB rule changes. Some of the policies, this is a tenant in situ, which we would say, for example, I'm just going to go back to the Kilbeggan ones because I'm allowed to talk about them. We were saying, well, our owner has talked to the minister and he says, well, sure, they qualify for the tenant in situ. Yeah, there's money to buy them, but there's no engagement from the local authority. It hasn't filtered all its way down. The local authority is going to say, well, actually, we will engage to buy them. I'm saying, well, somebody please ring me phone, answer me emails, or do something to make, the last thing you want to do is put people out. But, a vacant apartment is worth 30% more than an occupied one.
And in terms of the 35 notices to quit that have been served this week, do you know what proportion of them would be, of those tenancies will be supported through HAP or some similar social housing? All 100%.
All maybe bar one or two, but they're all HAP. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not pleasant, but that's them's the facts. So,
and I appreciate that you're trying to make contact with the local authority here and that you would see them as a preferred buyer. But the reality is, if they don't engage, you can't do that, and you have a job to do in order to sell the apartments. So, will you be looking at a block purchase?
Absolutely. There's 77 there. I sell them in lots or in one block, and 3 or 4 lots would probably be ideal, but sell them I will. That's my instruction. That's what the PSRA agreement is to do, and off you go and sell them. And these guys don't take, well, I can't do it as an excuse. It's going to happen. They're going to be sold. And the other point I'll make is they're going to be sold for, I would say, about 60% of what it would cost to build them. So I'm going to go, why is nobody taking my hand off me? It's a golden opportunity. It's done well for my client for the last 12 years. It's done okay. But when that cycle is over, he said, when you have them for 12 years and you're saying, well, we're going to get out in 10, we have 12 done now, we're okay. But they've got to go, and that's it.
Clement, you might give us some insight into the rental market there in Portlaoise, because I know Clement Herron Real Estate also deals with, you also have a lettings department. So say we know that 35 new people or families are going to be looking for accommodation in the Portlaoise area. Are they likely to find it?
They're going to get it very difficult to find it. Unless you have a house that's coming up to the market that's never been rented before and doesn't fall into the RPZ. If a house comes empty that's rented out already, and if it's at a low rent, the landlord is just been penalised for being a nice guy for the last few years and having a really good tenant, and he's not allowed to charge the full market rent. Full market rent for a 3-bedroom semi in Portlaoise is about $1,600 a month. That's what people are willing to pay. But if you have a restriction called the RPZ on that rent, and he's been down at 800 or 900, and he's just gone. Sell.
Let's talk about the rent pressure zone then in relation to this particular set of apartments that you have for sale, if we can. Are these ones that would be restricted under maybe a low rent?
No, they're not too bad that way, insofar as we've invoked the rent increases just a week before the RPZ found it on the 30th of November. So we got under the wire, but we didn't see it coming. We genuinely didn't see that Kilbeggan would ever be a rental pressure zone, and we were kind of shocked. And we said, "Ooh, that was close," but we reviewed our rents. We're on leases there, so
Yeah,
we're
do you
having our
know
rent.
it's not a popular opinion, but I actually think, well, the rent pressure zones are problematic. I think that's well accepted across the industry. But what's not a popular opinion is to say actually at this point the entire country should be covered, because actually it's causing more problems than not having so much of the country covered, and not all, because actually what we at this point we shouldn't. I don't think rent pressure zones are the right tool for us to be using, but because they are the current tool, they should apply equally to every landlord. And that's something that we found, because the rental trends that we've been following, and we try to look at regional and particularly rural areas up and down the country. And that's where we're seeing these massively disproportionate increases. I mean, where you're not recording 15% increases, you're recording 65%
Yeah,
increases.
yeah.
So that's a real problem.
It is, and it's leveling it out. The difficulty that I have really with the rental pressure zone or the RTB is, if you look at the, we say, establishment of the RTB in around 2011 to date, there's been 116 rule changes. That's the number of times they've changed the rules and moved the goals. That's called, when I was a kid in school, making it up as you go along.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
problem there,
can
stick the
you,
plaster.
Clement, can you repeat that stat there? So there's been 116 rule changes.
Rule changes in the RTB since they are established. They've changed the rules that many times. We have one last year now. Ashley's here in the office, just keeping an eye. And I said, no, Clem, you're not allowed to do that anymore. It's now 28 days. It used to be, I said it was 7 days. No, it's gone from 14. Now it's 28. Well, the fine for this is now this. They're changing all the time. The
Yeah.
rules are like, as somebody said to me, he said, "Well, I'm going to go and get my solicitor to have a look at that." And I said, "You're wasting your time. Actually, in our office is better up on those rules, on what's happening there on a daily basis, that you have to look at them every day and say what exactly are the rules now." Because I gave
Yeah.
one of the landlords a piece of advice, and they came back into the office and related it. And she said, "You're wrong, Clement." I says, "It's rent arrears. It's 14 days." No, she says, "Not 14 days, now 28 days." It's changing. It's changed 115 times on the last count with the number of rule changes.
Well, if you, as a professional in the industry whose livelihood depends on knowing this, can struggle to keep up to date, imagine what that's like for the individual landlord. And we know from the RTB's own data that 90% of the landlords registered own fewer than two properties, and the vast majority only own one. But I mean, so we're talking about individual private land property owners who are not landlords. This is not their day job. They're school teachers. They're
Exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
They're
So
and and it's difficult for them to keep on top of it, keep on top of their taxes. Like, now, I would say they used to register your tenant. Your tenant was registered for 4 years. Now it has to be registered every year, and you get they get these letters. So what's happened here? But the rules are changing. The RPZ is changing. It's a moving goal. If you see
yeah.
the goal and you can see exactly, you can kick into it. But when it's moving, it's difficult.
Joe, I think the unfairness of that is really compounded because of the people who were stuck in that system. And when I say stuck in that system, I don't just mean the tenants. I mean sometimes the landlords who are stuck in that system. And it feels like every problem we identify across the housing market comes back to one root cause, which is supply, which stems back into planning. But in terms of supply, it seems to be, I mean, in terms of looking at a solution, you're well immersed in the Portlaoise area, and I know you operate. Actually, what is your catchment area outside of Portlaoise?
Let's see. Cork, New York, or to Cork and Glenamady, have gavel will travel.
You've said that line
No.
before. But
I'm based in Clane and Kildare. We have main offices here in Portlaoise. There's 9 of us in here, and I'm buying down as far as Waterford, Carlow, Tullamore, and to Athlone, Kilbeggan, all around that Midland area. it's a bit more competitive. I used to do a lot of work in Dublin, and I found that the cost base in there was too high, and it was more competitive, and I just had to decide to be a big fish in a small pool or a small fish in a big pool, so I took the latter.
Well, to be fair, you're clearly a fast-moving fish that's willing to travel, so that's a good thing. And I know the buyer's agency side is something I'm personally very excited about. We're very excited that the National Property Awards 2024 with the Business Post will feature a category for buyer's agency for the first time ever, which we're very excited about. So actually, if there's any estate agencies up and down the country who are offering and delivering buyer's agency services, definitely get your application in for those awards. I think it's a real turning point in Ireland that we're recognising this is something that buyers and consumers want. So that's something that we might talk to you about at a later date. But I suppose before we finish up today, what's your outlook in terms of, again, as we said at the start, your firm is in the fortunate position that you are dealing with 3 new housing developments. But in terms of the pipeline for supply in the Portlaoise area over the next kind of 2 years, are you seeing a good pipeline of supply that will actually satisfy the demands of the buyers that are sitting waiting?
Yeah, I think it will come. There's some zoned land and some man was planning around it, and we have some of our builders that have gone on and looking for more sites and doing more planning. So it's not going to be anything crazy, but I'd like it to be nice and steady for the next 4 years. That okay, lads are building. They're not going crazy. They're buying. The lads are buying for 16 more sites, service sites, and saying, right, okay, we'll do them, and then maybe look further afield, maybe to buy a bit more land bank it and plan it. So my outlook is positive. I'm forever the optimist anyway. That that it will be okay based on the cost of production that we're still selling second hands for so close or below the cost of production, and where the new ones are getting a margin, and it's not exactly driving everybody into the market. It's only a builder that really knows what he's doing can get in there and make money, build them and make money, because there's a very fine line between making, your 10 or 15%, if that's even there for guys, but guys could lose just as quick.
Look, you're absolutely right. It's a fine line. And in fact, just this week in the news, we saw, unfortunately, the insolvency figures for 2023. And what we're seeing is construction figure very heavily into that. So I think you make a good point about knowing your marketplace, and knowing your marketplace goes beyond the site and the site specific knowledge. You need to know the pipeline of buyers. You need to know who they are, why they're buying in the area, and where they're getting their money.
And what they're willing to pay. And if they're willing to pay enough for these houses, we have to do a feasibility study for our builders, and they wouldn't be shy about telling you, you're going to stand over this, this feasibility study going to work. Can you get this money for me? And we've got to say, hand on heart, yeah or no. You're pitching it too high. You're better to walk away. And sometimes the deals that you walk away from, or you tell them to stand back and calm down, come back and you get rewarded in a few years' time and say that was close, but our industrial stuff is flying it, so that's going well. We've a lot of end users building industrial at the minute, and that's great. It's that's the one really good thing that Portlaoise has going for it, is logistically it's so central. You have the 2 motorways, you have Cork, Limerick and Dublin, and you're really, an hour and a half out of here in a truck, you're anywhere. And you have distribution, you have some of the big engineering companies, some of the big waste companies coming to Portlaoise and spending significant figures and building very significant units, and mostly end users that are building the units, mostly end users that are buying the land, and that's been really good, and renting. And talking about industrial space, that was the crows were nesting in it 5 or 6 years ago, and they're all absolutely flying it now.
Fantastic. And then final question for today, Clement, for any home builders, because we're increasingly hearing from home builders who do find themselves priced out of the greater Dublin area, and they're looking for opportunities. But you've said it there, you really have to know what you're doing. You have to know your marketplace. So are there still opportunities for home builders in the Portlaoise area?
Yeah, there is.
So they should head into your office.
You should come in for a chat.
Well, I hope the coffee's good there at least, Clement.
Oh, the coffee's very good up the road there. You know, the chocolate browns. The last guy that was in here for a meeting said it was excellent. Anyway.
Very good. Listen, thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise on the marketplace today. That was Clement Herron of Clement Herron Real Estate. And my thanks to producer Katie Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also, huge thanks to our show sponsor, daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Property Roundup. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows on iProperty Radio.